This crowd rises to its feet. Okoro slammed it home. Garland left wing, free ball. Perfect! Garland one of the lane, locked to Mobley. Pow! And Allen blocked the shot at the rim. Pow! With the left hand and a foul.
Welcome to the Chase Down Podcast, part of the Cavs Media family. I'm your host, Justin Rowan. The Chase Down is presented by Fubo, the official streaming partner of the Cavs. Watch over 350 channels of live sports and TV, including Bally Sports Ohio, without cable. There's no cost and no commitment. Try for free at FuboTV.com/Cavs. The Cleveland Cavaliers have blown out the Atlanta Hawks. They have won 6 of their last 8 games. And you know what? I know the team has had better wins than this so far this season. They've beat some really good teams, but this was probably the most feel-good win of them all. And joining me today to discuss it is my co-host, Carter Rodriguez. Carter, how you doing, buddy?
Brother, we didn't advance in the in-season tournament, but heck of a win for the boys. Super fun game, and it just kind of felt like everything started to click for them tonight.
Yeah, it really did feel like a great win. It was funny listening to Darius Garland post-game kind of discussing the win, discussing, the in-season tournament. And one of the things that I definitely noticed was everybody in the background, particularly Isaac Okoro, I believe, was yelling out, "It's personal. It's personal," when you play the Atlanta Hawks. And these are two teams that have had, some bad blood. They've had some competitive games. They've had blowouts going both directions. I messaged you before this game to put my cards on the table, and I said, every time we play the Hawks, I never feel confident. I don't feel confident when we have a lead. This is a team that's just so potent offensively, and coming into this game, they were actually the second best offensive rating in NBA history, and the Cavs held them to 105 points. I thought that this was a thorough win on both ends of the court. I thought, you're going to have some defensive lapses when you play a team that is so well coached, that moves the ball around, that has a lot of weapons. But overall, I just thought that the compete level was very high from the Cavs tonight.
Sorry, I muted myself. There's so many different places to start, but I do think starting on the defensive end of the floor is probably the right side for me. And where I'd like to start is Darius Garland guarding Trae Young. Something that vexed me going back 2 years to the play-in is obviously they lose to the Hawks in that second play-in game, and they have this hyper switch heavy scheme against Trae, and it works for a half. Trae figures it out and cooks us and knocks us out of the postseason. And something that vexed me from the beginning of that is hey, a big part of your defensive identity is guys do their job. You have the best cleanup guys on the back line in the NBA. And it really kind of bothered me in that game that I just kind of felt like they left their identity behind a little bit. And I think they left some meat on the bone in doing so. So it was really exciting to see Darius take the challenge with Trae, do a really, really good job guarding Trae. Guarded him physically without fouling, really kept his hips squared, never overcommitted, never lunged. Just kept things really hard on him from start to finish, even when Isaac Okoro was on the floor. They would switch some actions and put Isaac on him, but they did not just say, "Oh, okay, Isaac's here. You don't have to guard anymore, Darius." Or vice versa. Darius didn't say, I would like a break, please." He took that challenge pretty much the whole time, and Trae had a horrible game. He went 3 of 14 from the field, only 13 points to show for it. Obviously, the playmaking was still good, but I just felt like that was a really cool thing to see from Darius, who I don't think has had a particularly great defensive season compared to years past. So I was really pleased seeing him move his feet, play smart, play contained, and not make the kind of mistakes that Trae Young is really good at baiting you into.
Yeah, it's funny to say, but he's starting to build a reputation on that end, or at least over the last couple of years, where you could say, he hasn't played up to the defensive standard that he has in the past. I think it's still been all right overall. I think as he's gotten more comfortable, it's gone better. But this was a really nice night from him on that end of the court. And I'm glad that you brought up how they didn't automatically switch as well. That's one of my gripes, is when teams soft switch absolutely everything defensively, because I think it just makes you a little bit too predictable. And yeah, like you said, there were times where, all right, you got hung up on the screen, there was the communication and the switch occurred. But for the most part, he did a great job from a screen navigation standpoint. And I like that they didn't overreact in those situations where they did switch, right? Like, there were times, whether it was Trey or DeJounte out there, where you do need to switch and you go from either Darius or Donovan to Max or Isaac out there. And I just like the fact that you just feel confident with all of those guys. Like, Max Strus did a really good job. Obviously, Isaac Okoro is going to do a phenomenal job on that end of the court. And I just liked the overall effort defensively on the perimeter. I thought they were much, much more focused. They navigated those screens well. And like you said, when the perimeter effort on the defensive end of the court is at that high of a level, it makes life easier for the back end protection. And we know that the back end protection is elite as well, right? So it really allows those guys to do their job. And I think that naturally transitions into Evan Mobley, who, oh my God, had an absolute masterclass tonight. Obviously, the 7 blocks is the easiest transition when we're talking about defense, but 17 points, 19 rebounds, and
career high.
On career high. Thank you for pointing that out. I think on a night where the vibes are so good, we need to hold the fellas accountable, because there were some botched assists from the guys tonight where Evan Mobley was throwing some dimes, and I think Darius missed a layup, and there was a couple other missed opportunities. He could have had an even more dominant night from a box score perspective, but I just loved absolutely everything about how Mobley played. I thought he was incredibly assertive. I love the fact that you're seeing him bring the ball up more and more lately, and not just, I got the rebound, I'm going to take it up and hand it off. We've seen him in pressure situations bring the ball up. We saw that against Toronto late in games. If he has the mismatch, or if the defense is kind of just expecting him to hand the ball off to the guards, we see him actually really drive to the rim and be creative with how he finishes. I've just really liked what I've seen from Evan Mobley from a development standpoint, and just from his overall game blossoming. And I'm still stealing this tweet from Not George Mikan on Twitter, but over his last 11 games, he is averaging 18.6 points per game, 11.3 rebounds, 3 assists, 1.6 blocks, and a 66 true shooting percentage. When you add that to his phenomenal defense, sounds like he's having a pretty good little stretch here.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I just feel like even when the season hasn't been its best, ever since that kind of first week, I've just been super pleased with Evan. Like, I've just really liked seeing him move back to that natural 4 on the offensive end. I feel like the defense has been hyper impactful. The playmaking's been really good. Last few games, he's been taking a few of those mid-rangers and, rising confidently, coming off those curls, which is a really important shot for this offense. He hit a 3 tonight. I'm not going to count on those, but it was still
a confident-looking shot.
It was still a very confident shot while the team was humming. So it was one of those things where it's like, okay, we're humming. I feel good. I'm gonna go ahead and pull on this one. And man, the rebounding has just been really, really impressive. I mean, it just is so clear that he's committed himself on that end of the floor, and it is really meaningful. I mean, he's got 33 rebounds his last 2 games. Like, that's pretty freaking impressive.
Yeah, especially when, the first one was against Toronto, who can be just such a dynamic team on the offensive glass. Second night of a back-to-back. I'm just very, very pleased with his play overall. And the rebounding was important too, because I thought one of the things early that wasn't really going well for the Cavs was I thought Jared Allen had given up a few too many offensive rebounds. A lot of these situations, I can tell where he struggles and gives up offensive rebounds is usually when he's starting to come out and provide a little bit of help defense, and he's coming out to a shooter and then trying to get back into that rebounding position. I think sometimes he can get hung up there, but if this pairing is going to work effectively, and if that's not going to be an issue, you want to have that backline rebounding support, right? Like you're going to need to have Mobley rotate into position. You're going to need to have guys like Strus, Isaac Okoro, and the rest of the team rotate in and provide that rebounding help. And I thought Mobley really stepped up as the game progressed, and that became less and less of an issue. But it was definitely something that I noticed early in this game, especially when, you contrast that to how Allen looked against some real premier centers over the last week or so.
Yeah, absolutely. And like, I think it's kind of more about how you respond than how you start in a lot of these games. Obviously, assuming that start doesn't tank you, which obviously it didn't for the Cavs. One last thing about Mo.
That's true for the season overall.
Yeah, that's a really great point. That might be that might be the name of this podcast. But one thing about Mobley that I did want to bring up, just a quiet thing to monitor. He's made 13 of his last 14 free throws. Didn't attempt any tonight. He's up to 77% for the season. His previous career high was 67 last year. It just kind of feels like he's really rounding in. He is now officially averaging a career high in points, a career high in rebounds, and a career high in assists, all on a career low minutes.
That's pretty good.
Not by a lot, but still nice to see.
And I'm glad you brought up the free throw point, because that's definitely been something that we've been keeping an eye on with him. The Cavs have had so many games over the last couple of years that have come down to the wire, and that's just the nature of the NBA. So anytime you're not leaving points on the free throw line, I think that's huge. I mean, God, look at how many points Toronto left on the free throw line in the last game, right? Like that ended up basically being the difference in the game. So for Evan Mobley to be knocking those down, I think one, it's good just from you don't want to leave points on the table standpoint, but I think it also shows touch from that range of the floor, and usually that's one of those indicators that, okay, you're going to be able to expand that jumper a little bit. And I think you're seeing more and more self-creation from him. You're seeing more and more of those mid-range attempts, and that confidence is starting to build. And there's fewer record scratches where Mobley catches it in the mid-range at the nail, the defense is sagging off, and he's thinking about what he's doing. The processing speed is getting back up to where we expect from Evan Mobley, who came into the league acting like a supercomputer. And this is going to be the ebbs and flows, right? That's part of player development. Is, all right, I do something really well, the league adjusts, I adjust, then the league adjusts, then I adjust, right? And I just think you're seeing that continued development from him. And one of the guys that I think might be dealing with a little bit of that league adjustment is Craig Porter Jr., who I think had his first rough shift with the Cavs this year.
3 minutes in and out.
Yeah. real
Ne'er
quick.
to return.
And you know what? It was interesting. So the lineup he was out there with, Darius Garland, Isaac Okoro, George Niang, and Jared Allen. I was kind of going back and forth. I was like, do I like him out there with Isaac Okoro? I'm like, okay.
I don't.
Here's the thing.
Let me say.
Here's the thing. I actually think that is a lineup when you have a shooter at the point guard position in Darius Garland, or we should say hypothetical, because Darius, you aren't noticing until you start taking more threes, and you have George Niang out there. I think you have enough space for those guys to operate, and I think those are two guys that can apply rim pressure. I think for those lineups to work, you probably want to have Mobley at the 5. You probably, if he was healthy, would like to have Dean Wade, just so that you could play at a higher pace. I think that's an up-tempo lineup that could, in theory, work. But I think the scout's starting to get out there a little bit on Craig Porter Jr. A couple sloppy mistakes and turnovers from him in that stretch. But, that's one of the beauties of the two-way contract is, okay, you run into a situation like this, you can kind of, slow it down for a second. Maybe he gets some games in with the charge. He's able to work on things and adjust to the adjustment And I think, it's part of the process when you talk about him rounding out his game and developing into someone that you can count on to be a consistent rotation player.
Yeah, last thing I'll say about the I cannot believe you went to a 3-minute Craig Porter Jr. shift before we got to Donovan Mitchell, but it's fine.
It was a natural transition from the Evan Mobley development point, okay?
Last thing I'll say about that is you're damn right. Got to go full Ricky Bobby. You got to go fast. If you're gonna play CPJ and Isaac together. But Justin,
Donovan Mitchell, he's a bad man.
Oh, he's finally back, my friend. He had a pretty rough couple games, and certainly made up for that. He scores 40 points on 14 of 25 from the field, 9 from the line. Gets 11 threes up, which I think he was shooting better before the end of game flurry. To try to catch New York. So, it was really nice to see Donovan kind of get a get-right game, and also, just kind of see, maybe this is too simple of a way to put it, but see him thrive while the rest of the team is also thriving and cooking. It kind of felt like a this or that for much of the season, just because they were so limited early in the season. He was having to carry such a heavy load, and kind of felt nice just to see them kind of all coalesce to have a really great game together with him kind of at the vanguard.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I love about tonight's game is it's not like everything went well throughout the whole game, right? Like they started off 1 from 9 from 3. Donovan had a few sloppy turnovers to start the game, didn't shoot particularly well as it started, but they didn't abandon what they were doing. They kept moving the ball. They kept getting good looks. And it really felt like he was getting his game off within the flow of the offense. And even to start the second half, that was, one of those Mitchell scoring sprees where he comes out, he knocks down a couple threes. He's dominant. But they didn't stick with that for too long. All of a sudden, as the defense adjusted to what Donovan was doing, he's giving the ball up and other guys are creating, and the ball continued to have momentum. It continued to have juice. And to me, that's so important to see. And you mentioned, getting away from the defensive identity, which was one of those things that happened against the Hawks in the past. The other element of that was, we're up, we're going to protect the lead, we're going to slow things down. And it was kind of funny to see it was actually Atlanta that was slowing things down a little bit in the second half, and the Cavs kept saying, no, we're going to get into our sets with 18 seconds left on the shot clock. I gotta be honest with you, Carter, this just popped in my head. There's been a couple times this year where Mobley's trying to do some self-creation, he gets down to the rim, he doesn't really have an angle, he needs to give the ball up, and I instinctively feel panic. I feel panic because usually we're initiating the sets so late in the shot clock last year that someone's getting handed a grenade, and he throws it out to Donovan Mitchell, and I look down and there's 8 seconds left on the shot clock. I'm like, oh, we can actually get to another action. That's great. I just love Mitchell's effort overall. I like that, things didn't go well initially, but he continued giving effort. He gets a turnover and he dives on the floor to get a loose ball, or shot kind of slips out of his hand and he's fighting for an offensive rebound. First double of the season for him.
Thought his effort level across the board was really, really good tonight. The hands were very active. I thought he squared up chest to chest on a few DeAndre Hunter drives that were tough, and he could have bailed on up 12. And kind of just let Hunter go by and hope someone cleaned it up. I thought his effort was awesome tonight.
His effort really was awesome, and great stat from Bally's in the post game was this was the 24th career 40-point game for Donovan Mitchell, but it's his 15th with the Cavaliers. That's absolutely insane, right?
Yeah, I mean, 15 and 1.15 seasons. Is pretty darn cool. I just thought he was really, really good tonight. I feel like, on a night where he had 6 turnovers to 5 assists, if you're box score watching, you maybe think he's just gunning. I don't really think so. I thought he was just super active and engaged, and his mistakes were ones of maybe being a little too aggressive and playing a little too fast. But I thought his engagement was really, really great tonight, which coming off 2 really, really hard games, especially one even in the win, a lot of it was Darius kind of commanding the offense down the stretch. It was just really fun to see Donovan go off in a team context with the rest of the team, providing really great supporting efforts to help, earn a win.
Yeah, and I think the encouraging thing about this too is the Cavs, from like a strength of schedule standpoint, they played a lot of good, not necessarily great defenses, but they played a lot of good defenses. You look at the EPM, like strength of schedule adjusted, they actually had the Cavs 15th offensively rather than the 23rd on the season. So kind of tells you that, they haven't played a lot of soft defensive teams. It's nice to see them play one and the offense take off, right? Like, because if you play a team like the Atlanta Hawks and it's still a slog and you're not able to get that ball movement and you're not able to take advantage of Jalen Johnson being out, like, that would be concerning. That's one of those things where you're like, okay, like, do we have to rethink our approach because things aren't clicking? This was very clearly something where, it was clicking all night. The ball movement was very good. And the encouraging aspect of this as well is there's other tiers this can get to. Like Donovan, he's still, he's looking more and more like himself, but he's going to have better shooting nights than 3-11 from 3. Darius is going to get back to, the kind of shot profile that he's had over his career, right? Like we've always wanted him to take more threes, but he's taking fewer than even that. I think, the hand wrap kind of speaks for itself when it comes to that. But even Caris LeVert, like he's working his way back and doesn't look 100%. Isaac Okoro isn't quite back to where he was at the start of the season, but I thought tonight was a step in the right direction for him. Like all of these guys can continue to play better. And when you think of the effect that has on a guy like Evan Mobley, he usually becomes more and more dominant when, it's funny to say, he does more when less is needed from him, just because he's such a cerebral player and he plays off of these guys so well that when they're drawing attention and when they're being effective, it opens up the floor and the possibilities for him even more.
Yeah, I mean, you just look at what his strengths are right now. He's not a self-created shot maker kind of player right now, and that's okay. What he is a great play finisher, a great mover in space to, he's like a tight end running an option route almost, he's like Jason Witten, like just finding the empty space in the defense and attacking from there and just kind of being reliable on that side of the floor. And then, the other thing he does well is create and play make from the high post, which if all your guards and wings and bigs are playing well around him, well, yeah, it's just going to be a lot easier for him to make the reads he's capable of making and get the ball to guys with advantage. So, one nice thing about this win attacking a team with pretty limited defensive personnel is something that has kind of griped me out about the Cavs offense this year has been that if the opposing team is playing fundamentally sound, I just don't think the Cavs have been as able to generate advantages against a good defense as, other teams, like even like, someone like Trae Young, just inherently, because people are so afraid to foul him, all this stuff, he inherently kind of bends the defense his way. So even if you're playing fundamentally, like, you can just generate clean looks. I think the Cavs offensively in some of these wins as of late, even going back to the Philly win, are, even when teams are running a good defensive set, running good defensive coverage, their talent on the offensive end is kind of starting to show itself just a little bit more and more, where, hey, you played that perfectly and we still generated a really clean advantage for us to attack, whether it's on this action or, the subsequent action. So I thought they did a really nice job of that in the second half, and it was really fun to watch.
It was really fun to watch, and that's one of the things that, we've been talking about, that we want to see the Cavs dictate, like, the terms of engagement, right? Like, dictate the style of play, dictate the flow. As I mentioned, when Atlanta was trying to slow things down in the third quarter and they made their run, the Cavs said, no, we're playing at this pace. We're going to try to rush what you're doing offensively and get into our sets and make sure that we're running our stuff on the offensive end of the court. And I really like seeing that. And What do you think of the Cavs? I want to get your thoughts on this because it's actually something we haven't talked about either on or off the pod. But the rolling the ball up, they do it more and more frequently, even when the game clock isn't running. And my read on that is that they're doing that so that the offense can get kind of set up. And all right, the ball's rolling up, everyone gets into their spots. We start the action, then Darius picks it up, and the shot clock starts then, right? So it's basically, really utilizing as much of the shot clock as possible. What are your thoughts on it? Because I think it's unique how often that the Cavs are doing it.
My thoughts are, I don't think I want to go bowling with the Cavaliers because these guys, some of these are the worst rolls I've ever seen.
Pace of play too.
Don't worry about pace of play. I'm talking about it'll be a sideline inbound, and it'll almost hit the other sideline. If you're gonna roll the ball, you got to roll it towards the opposite hoop, guys.
I feel like some of them play with bumpers.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what. I would challenge any of them to maybe just generally walk the dog in the direction of the hoop if you're looking to yield an advantage. But jokes aside, I actually am pretty pleased with that. Like, I do think there is a lot of value in it. There's a reason a guy like Rondo made a career out of walking the dog up the floor, because starting your set at 24 seconds instead of at 17, it's a pretty insane amount of time to buy yourself just by walking the dog up the floor. And if they're not going to press you, if they're not going to make you pick it up earlier, why wouldn't you do it? Like, it's one of those, there's just no reason not to make that choice. And it's nice to see if the Cavs are indeed kind of focusing on getting into their sets earlier in the shot clock. Well, there's no better way to do it than to already have the ball across half court before the shot clock starts.
Yeah, I totally agree. They just got to, iron out those rolls and remember that the basketball court does not come with bumpers like bowling. It doesn't come with that support. It doesn't come with the kind of support that we get from Zoom. I did a terrible job on that transition, but you know what? The thought was there. It's late.
We're going to get you some bumpers for your ad reads, buddy.
But here's the thing. That terrible transition still came in clear as day because of the support for Zoom. Support for this podcast and the following message comes from Zoom. 500,000 businesses connect using Zoom, a single platform for phone, chat, workspaces, events, apps, and video. Zoom enables real-time collaboration for teams around the globe. Zoom, how the world connects. Carter, I tweeted this out, and it's fitting that after an unprofessional transition like this, we talk about a true pro in Max Strus, because I really feel like I'm going to start running out of things to talk about without repeating myself over and over again.
I got something to start with.
All right, go for it, buddy.
It looks like Beast Girls in the YouTube chat is calling him Mad Max. And I kind of like it because this man is surly. His post games are all, the first couple post games I saw with him were like after losses or like maybe not as good of wins as you would want. I'm like, yeah, Max is he's a little grumpy about this one. And then, you watch him after a 25-point win. It's like, he's a little grumpy about this one. so I know we all like saying the Strus is loose, but Mad Max might be a literally great nickname for our surly guy.
You know what? And it makes me feel even better that at Media Day we got to get him to crack up and smile a little bit. I feel like that is a monumental accomplishment. Because
we're charming, Justin.
You're right. We do know now. We're getting to know him a little bit better, and for all the body language doctors out there, we're learning that is just his disposition. He is professional. He is serious. I like the play that jumped out to me, and it's funny. It was just he got the ball. I don't remember if it was after a stop or a defense or just the ball being inbounded, but he saw Isaac Okoro like leaking out in transition, and he just headmanned that ball, like just full force chest pass, got it out to him. And I'm like, man, he just always makes the right play. He's so decisive in all of his movements and what he's doing on the court. Like, okay, if he's giving up the ball, he's going to be cutting into space. If he's getting the ball and he's borderline open, he's taking the shot, right? Like, when you're playing with a guy where you always know what to expect from him, it leads to that kind of second nature offensively where You're not thinking about where the ball needs to go. You just see, like, with teams that have been together for so long, that have developed that kind of chemistry, they're passing to where guys are going to be rather than seeing a guy that's open and then delivering the pass. And that small difference can lead to, so much more success, and the type of success that translates to the playoffs, because your decision-making windows are going to be shorter. You're going to have to be able to make those reads. You're going to have a guy like that that's willing to take those shots after against a late contest. And he just does absolutely everything for the Cavs. I couldn't be more thrilled with his presence on this team.
I'm beating a dead horse with the playmaking. He had another 7 assists tonight. Again, I must remind folks, his career high in assists was last season with the Heat at 2.1. How many games this season, Justin? We are, doing some fast math here. 18 games into the year. How many games has Max Strus had 2 or less assists this season?
1.
He's had 3. He had a 0 assist game the first Indy play-in tournament. He had 2 against the Lakers, and he had 2 in the opener against Brooklyn when he scored 27 points. Other than that, it's been at least 3. It's actually kind of a wonder he entered tonight only averaging 3.8. He's going to be, I think, over that likely with tonight's outing, and it just kind of feels like every game you're just can pencil in like 5. It actually feels low based on kind of just seeing the way he's impacting how this team's offense runs. That he's only at 4 assists a game right now. It feels like you can pencil him in for 5 or 6 almost every night now.
Yeah, and so often that playmaking is leading to, an assist opportunity for someone else, like those hockey assists, and maybe that's some of it, but like he's just always making the right play out there. And his effort on the defensive end, I don't think we can kind of overstate just how important that is. Like, I feel confident when he's out there defensively, and it was funny for all the talk of, hey, he's going to be able to defend his actual position. He's going to be guarding, 1, 2s, and 3s instead of so much time at power forward. The fact that he had to start the year guarding power forwards again was a little unfortunate. But, just seeing him within this defensive structure, seeing him with Evan Mobley and Jared Allen behind him, like, he's giving you legitimate 3-and-D minutes, right? Like, he's playing defense at a high level, or at least a high enough level where you feel confident in the structural integrity of your defense. And that's so important, because that he's bringing more to the offensive end of the court. That he's contributing on the glass, the playmaking, the shooting, all of that matters so much. And it just really feels like the Cavs have kind of found that 3-and-D wing that they've been looking for in Strus, and I couldn't be happier with it.
This is kind of where I think we probably have the conversation about the starting lineup in that group's performance. Obviously, some talk on social media today about how it, despite this being supposed to be the silver bullet, and Strus has been playing awesome. Those 5, I think, were minus 6.1 net rating in their 90 minutes so far this season. Well, one, certainly bet those numbers are going to look better after tonight, where all 5 starters, I think, were at least plus 20. But, what do you make of those stats in terms of, do you care right now that lineup is getting outscored when, given that there are, a healthy amount worse than last year's starters with Okoro on offense? And I think about the same defensively, if I recall correctly, on by the numbers. But what's your level of concern, if any, with that 5-some in their actual fit together?
Yeah, I just last year's sample size was so much larger that I just have a baseline level of confidence when it comes to the core 4 is going to work well together. So the numbers have actually updated with today's game on that starting 5, and the defensive rating of that group is actually 5 points better than the starting lineup last year with Isaac Okoro. And I just don't think that going from Isaac Okoro to Max Strus is going to hurt that lineup's ability to play offense. I think it's more of a reflection of, Donovan's been banged up. He's been dealing with the hamstring injury. Darius has had the hamstring and the hand injury and the neck injury. Seems to always be snaked in to start the year. Now they have a plus 3.8 net rating on the year, Carter. And for all of you that are sitting there saying, well, the sample size is so small that
you shouldn't have been worried in the first place.
one good game, puts them in the positive. Well, yeah, that's a reflection of the sample size prior to this too, that one more game can add to that.
That's unbelievable.
So yeah, they're +4 net rating. Already feeling better about that. It's a lineup that makes sense. That's the biggest thing to me.
I think you knew where I was going with this when I asked the question. I thought it was at least worth discussing, but like obviously both of us were going to agree on this. Like it's as simple as what you said. I expect the Cavs starters, who were a very good offensive fivesome last year, to be better on offense when they swap Isaac Okoro for Max Strus, who is having a good year. Like sometimes I think folks can just get so caught up in chasing the numbers and, kind of playing the result that they almost kind of forget like the very basic basketball reality. And like most of that stuff just gets better when players play better in those minutes. And, they played better tonight and flipped their entire metrics around. And sometimes it's that simple. It is really funny that it swung that hard in one game.
Yeah, it kind of demonstrated the point pretty clearly. And the funny thing is, like, that lineup has an offensive rating now of 113.6, defensive rating of 109.8. I think the offense is going to continue to improve. And the funny thing is, like, from a true shooting percentage standpoint, it's actually 59.4. So part of the inefficiency of the offense really comes down to turnovers with this group. And, this was a much, much better game from Darius from that standpoint. I believe 8 assists to 1 turnover. Only the one, though, it was kind of in traffic where he lost the handle. I think Okongwu may have poked that away.
It was very late in the game as well. They were up 20. Yeah,
like it's encouraging to see that because I think obviously the hand has had an impact on the mishandling ones, but there's also been a healthy mix of him just not putting enough juice on it, throwing a lazy pass that gets picked off and that sort of thing. So he really had a playmaking clinic, and I thought to start this game, while Donovan was kind of finding his footing, the playmaking from Darius was so strong to start this game, and I continue to be impressed. As much as I want to see the 3-point attempts continue, and I love seeing him hit those back-to-back threes in the third at a time where it felt
with
like
a little FU energy with Trey, who kind of pushed him over
he cleared him out.
Well, yeah,
he
absolutely.
cleared him out.
I was being
cleared
respectful.
him out to hit that three. Like, as much as I want to see that part of his game continue, I want to see him get back to that preseason mentality where he was jacking up the threes and whatnot. Like, I'm impressed by his ability to score efficiently and find other ways to be effective overall. And I just think once it all comes together, the effectiveness of those lineups are going to continue, and the effectiveness of Darius overall, it might reach career highs, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just all dependent on his comfort getting the shots up. Those 2 threes were obviously super important, super valuable, and like they kind of changed the shape of the game going into halftime. So, like pushing them up 12 in that moment was or no, it was up. I forget what it pushed them up to, but it was really important for him to hit those threes and kind of establish kind of authority of the game in that moment, and kind of felt like a microcosm of Darius hits one, Trey pushes him down to answer, and Darius kind of says, no, I'm no, this is my moment, this is my game, back out, and it was really fun to see. The other thing I thought was kind of cool about this game was it kind of felt like the first signs of life since their returns for both Karis and Isaac. Like I think both of them had pretty limited impact, and Karis's jumper has been off, and Ice just kind of looked timid out there for the most part on offense, a few record scratches, and I thought both of them kind of got to show out. I mean, dealer's choice on who you want to talk about first of those two, but I thought they both had a really nice, especially in the second half, as to help the Cavs pull away.
Yeah, I'm going to start with Isaac Okoro, just because he helped get us through the most lean days in this season when things were bleak. He was kind of that one bright spot, and I just want to see him continue to get to that spot, because when you talk about kind of the internal ways that, hey, this can still get better, Isaac Okoro is at the top of that list, and I just like seeing him start to, stuff the box score again, right? Like, all right, I got beat for a half second, but I'm going to recover and block your layup attempt, right? And getting the offensive rebounds, I think is huge from him. Two assists as well. Like, that's the kind of stuff I really like to see from him, finishing through contact. I just liked his activity more, and it's nice to see that it's trending that way, right? Like, when you're talking about what, I don't know if it's a recurring issue or if it just happens to be the same knee, but when you're dealing with a situation like that, you don't want to see more playing time lead to him feeling sore and, okay, maybe we're going to have to shut things down again, right? Like, the fact that, he's actually building towards the right direction, where he's looking more spry, he's getting out in transition, he's finishing through guys, he's getting the offensive rebounds and whatnot, he's getting the blocks. It just gives you confidence that it's trending in the right direction. And I think the hope is that it continues like we've seen with Jared Allen, where the team proactively shut him down and have managed his minutes really well, where Jared hasn't seemed like, oh man, he's kind of laboring out there, right? Like, he's not moving around well in the court. It seems like they've taken the long-term approach with him. And if they're doing the same thing with Isaac, and he's able to get back into shape and get back into form, I think that that's really, really encouraging. And you hope that that knee continues to respond well to the increase in minutes.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, you want to see him be healthy first and foremost, but you just kind of wanted to see him start to find his way on the floor again. I thought his first couple shifts after his return were pretty rough. I think it was very justifiable. He was getting like 10 minutes in some of those games or less. So it was cool to see that from him. And then Karras, like, he just kind of, with all this playmaking, I don't think I all the way understood, like, the degree to which it's going to be a little weird for Karras. When the team's fully healthy, like, he's going to just have to pick his spots, and he's going to have to do well in those spots he gets. He was getting like 20 shots up a game earlier in the year when they were really banged up. Like, 8 field goal attempts in 30 minutes. That's like, that might be the neighborhood he has to live in in the short term. So I thought his effort on both ends of the floor were really good. He hit a few timely threes, hit a few really timely mid-rangers just to kind of keep Atlanta at bay in the short term. And it was just kind of nice to see him start to find a little flow, because he also was missing some time as well.
It's working, man. It's starting to come together.
Maybe.
Like, 6 of 8. And the encouraging thing too is, okay, now you've won back-to-back games. I think that one over Toronto was really important, especially second night of a back-to-back. But now you've won 6 of 8. You're playing Portland and Detroit, so really important that you take care of business there. Portland just beat an Indiana team that went ice cold from 3. I'm not suggesting, oh man, that's going to be a real test, but you don't want to have a letdown game. You have a chance to get to 4 games over 500 by the quarter mark of the season. Like, with everything that the Cavs have gone through, that's really encouraging. Then you have that weird stretch where we don't know who they're going to play, but they're going to play 2 other teams that have missed out on the in-season tournament. So I think you can have like a level of confidence that you're not playing the best of the best when it comes to the league. So maybe that's an opportunity to stack a couple more wins there, but you're starting to build in the right direction. You're half game out of 5th in the Eastern Conference right now. Like, that's wild with how uneven the season has felt, but you're able to get things going in the right direction. We can finally start to have a little bit more sustained fun here.
Yeah, just was doing just a little quick perusal of who those teams might be in terms of like the best teams that didn't make it. Dallas, Denver, Clippers, Minnesota, Golden State, OKC. Those almost all West teams. Most of the best teams in the East made it, with the exception of Philly, who were in the Cavs group, who finished in 3rd, and the Heat, who finished in 3rd in their group. So,
God, we're definitely playing Philly.
Well, who knows? But it'll be interesting to see. I have no clue. Do you have any clue what the rules are? Like, is it going to be East teams that we play? Is it going to be completely random? This is kind of crazy that we don't even know what days they're playing right now.
God, we're so responsible. We do our homework. I don't know if there's actually even things that we could have looked up for it, but it's a
Listen,
little bit
our listeners did the homework on the two-way rules in the comments of the last pod. So
we love you guys.
We'll just let you guys do it. We'll just let you guys do it for us again. It's fine.
Yeah. Thank you. And we always appreciate the comments. I like to go back and look at the YouTube comments as well on the podcast. Really, really do appreciate that. While we're on the subject, we should talk about ad reads because every now and then we get a comment about the ads. We don't know what it's going to be with the iHeart ad reads, but we do love all the support. But Carter, I gotta say, I miss it because our dear friend Ben Cox mentioned just some funny ads that he got, and I gotta say, Carter, I miss doing them myself. I miss all the random ad reads that I'd be able to throw in the podcast. I love doing the Zoom one, but I miss doing the random ones that are now geo-based.
Yeah, something like that. There were a few dodgy ones back in the dark days of the pod, my friend. Let us just say.
There were. That was a dangerous game, but I gotta say, I saw a few comments on it, and it made me think back to the glory days where we were doing ad reads about the Mennonite mob and other documentaries and fun stuff like that. I knew that would get a smile. I knew I'd get a smile out of you with that one. But that was a lot of fun back in the day. Again, big shout out to everyone that comments and gives us your feedback. We love you all. Carter, before we wrap this up, I do want to talk about the in-season tournament, as now we're done with it for this year. Cavs eliminated after the group stage. JB Bickerstaff, I thought, made a good point prior to the game where he mentioned he would have liked to see, kind of double the number of games where you're playing home and home. I think there'd be an opportunity to do that, like in division and stuff like that. I'd like to see a little bit more of a sample size. I don't know, maybe scheduling makes this impossible. But I'd like to see where you're playing a larger sample where you lose the first game and it doesn't eliminate you. Like, I think keeping fans invested for longer would be a great addition or an adjustment to the in-season tournament format, because I think on the whole, this has been a lot of fun. Like, the teams have seemed to care about, the fans seem to care about it. Like, you still got the people that are like, I don't understand any of this. But it's pretty simple. Like, the teams with the best record get in, and the tiebreaker is point differential.
If I may put on my professional esports cap, because we do a lot of this in my day job. We do a lot of talking to different publishers about kind of formats, how they should build their league structure and things like that. And I've been a proponent of the tournament idea from Jump Street. You would never build an esports ecosystem with a 6-month, 7-month regular season and then one playoffs. Any esport fan would throw you off a bridge for a format like that. That you want the beats during the season to kind of measure yourself up against. So I love the tournament. I think the only tweak I would make is actually even simpler. Top 2 teams from each group get out, and you double the wild cards. So basically you do a 16-team tournament instead of an 8-team single elim tournament. I think
you just want everyone to get in.
Nope, it's not about that. It's about, I think with a single elim tournament, three rounds just feels too abbreviated to me. It kind of almost doesn't feel like a tournament. It's just too I think it's too tight. I love the single elim. But yeah, so I think that's what I would do. I would do a single. I would keep single round robin, because it keeps the scheduling easier. But just 2 teams from each group get in.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I always enjoy is that it does seem like the NBA is willing to try things, and they're willing to fine tune things. So I expect there to be tweaks. JB also mentioned with the courts, he doesn't mind that there's specialty courts, but just making sure that some of them you're not slipping around all over the place, and I'm sure things like that will get ironed out. Garland mentioned after the game that he doesn't really like point differential being the tiebreaker, and that's something that quite a few players have talked about.
That's the problem, by the way, with only one team. This is again, I'm getting real nerdy about my day job and working with our competition operations team that at Esports Engine that do a lot of this great ecosystem design. That's the problem with if you're going to do single round robin, it's going to be tiebreaker city. With only one team getting out of groups. Your tiebreaker scenarios collapse when you just go to two teams advancing from each group. And that's what like the World Cup does. It's not only group winners that get out. It's the top two from each group, and then that's why the group of death quote. It also kind of helps protect you against that group of death draw where it's like, oh well, we were awesome. Like the Cavs were awesome in this tournament. They were plus like 40 and lost one game. And yet they are, they don't get to advance based on, another team getting hot. And they lost one game against Indy by like, what was it, like 4 or 6 points? It wasn't much. I think 5. So I just think it's a more equitable outcome that still has the chaos factor that the league's probably looking for.
Yeah, and also I think that helps protect you if you're a team like the Orlando Magic that finished up, their in-season tournament games last week, I believe, and they got eliminated today with point differential, but they're kind of in a tough spot where the Knicks knew how many points they needed to get and how many points they needed to win by, whereas whoever finishes their game the week prior, they had no knowledge of that, right? Like they're the ones kind of setting the standard for other teams to try to overcome.
Yeah, for sure. But like overall for year one of groups, I really liked it. A few things that if I were to give feedback to the league's broadcast partners is get me a freaking differential bug in the corner. Get me score trackers, get me more information. I was having to do I and John
Carter going to work.
I and John Michael were doing a lot of math. And it would have been really nice to have a little bug in the corner that just tells me exactly what number we need to hit. But it was dramatic. It felt like when they were really pushing, and when they went up like 25-27, and you go, oh man, every Donovan 3 pull up was like really exciting and fun. And like again, how many games in December are exciting and fun that are already decided? It's like you're just kind of contributing to a larger ecosystem, and I think this is a big win for the league. I thought it was from Jump Street, and I think by the end of this, a healthy percentage of the skeptics will already be converted, and in 5 years, skeptics will be the vast minority. That is my steadfast belief, because extra competition and beats to measure yourself against over the course of the season is just fun. It's just more fun. And anytime any nerds talk to me about incentives, I'm going to lose my mind. What's the point of any of this? It's for fun.
Yeah. And it's fun.
It's exciting.
And it's also, I care about a team and I either dislike or don't care about some other teams, and I don't want those teams getting something that could be going to me.
Absolutely.
And going to the Cavs. Like that's what it all comes down to. It's like I hate that the Knicks squeaked in on point differential. Like I want to be that team. I want that, and that's going to be in the forefront of my mind when we get to this time of year next year with whatever tweaks are there, right? Like you want your team to do well. And I think having kind of, this broken out segment, I think really it's fun. It's fun to have something to care about at the end of November.
I'm going to
be tuning into those games in December as well, like the Vegas rounds. I'm going to be really interested to see how that goes.
Of course, it'll be fun. One last note, if I could play pretend commissioner just once more, it would be nice to see group play somehow compressed. It being spread out made it kind of hard to follow until we got to the kind of the decider games, and like that's always a give take with round robin. Like the first couple rounds are going to be, you're always going to be left a little adrift at sea on them, but like having all groups play the same day or compressing group play to a 2-week stretch, I think I know
if
arena scheduling is the worst thing in the world, so I understand why it might have to be this way, at least for now, but from a pure entertainment, I think I would really like that.
Yeah, like if you had 3 weeks that were branded, in-season tournament, group stage, the courts are different and whatnot, like then you can start to have even the accompanying analysis from like all the major networks and stuff like that. All right, we're in this stage, here's what's going on, here's the standings, here's the wild card and all that. Like it just occupies more of your consciousness and the consciousness of the fans overall, I think, when it gets condensed like that. So totally agree with that point. I thought, for year one, trying to get our feet wet and understand this new concept, I thought it was absolutely a win. And tonight was absolutely a win for the Cleveland Cavaliers. A lot of fun to get to talk about this one. I'm happy that we had so much to talk about too. That's always a nice treat when we only have one game. Big thanks to everyone that tuned in live on YouTube. Make sure you like and subscribe, click notification bell so you know when we're going live. If you're listening via podcast and you want to support us, leave us a rating, a review, subscribe, unsubscribe, resubscribe, and help cook those books. If you want to be part of Chase Down's exclusive Discord chat, send a screenshot of the review to chasedownpod@gmail.com. However you choose to support us, we really do appreciate it. Make sure you guys are staying safe out there. Until next time, go Cavs.